right, good afternoon, everyone. We're here at Fairview Southdale, and needless to say, I'm president of Minnesota Nurses Association. I'm also an ICU nurse at Northmore and Robbinsdale, and I have been to all the lines, or are going to get to all the lines, and there isn't one single line that doesn't look like this. The support of the nurses for their contract, the support of the nurses for their patients, the support of the nurses for their community is overwhelming, because we are out here not only for our own contract, but for our very profession. And the reason I say that, thank you, the reason I say that is that we want something so simple in our contract as that our employers would have to convince 50% of our nurses that a staffing change on their floor would be okay. They don't want to agree to that. And I say, if you can't convince 50% of your nurses to a staffing change, then maybe you shouldn't make it. Now, I've heard stories that, we're 15,000 nurses out on strike, largest private sector nursing strike in U.S. history. And I've heard the whole nation is watching. And I've also heard that, I just heard a story today, Teamsters 320 were at the negotiating table, and they came away from the employer feeling very down and very discouraged until they heard that 15,000 nurses were going out on strike. And all of a sudden, it was like fire in their blood. We are, how does this go? We are the tip of the spear for all workers all across the nation. Nurses, you got to know that we're the tip of the spear. We are the ones that are showing all the workers all across America how it is to fight and what it means to stand up for your contracts, but not only that, stand up for the working people of America. So thank you, nurses. Thank you for your, thank you. So now I want to call a few people up here, a few good friends of mine here. We got Erica Helling. She's a fabulous nurse leader. She's on the negotiating team at Fairview Southdale. She's one of your chairs. Let's give it up for Erica. Wow. Follow Mary. Good luck with that, right? So I'm so excited to be here to represent these Southdale and Riverside nurses. We are working so hard to get a contract done. We were there on Saturday night at 12:30 trying to get this done and had no luck. What we're looking for is a say at the staffing table. We want to sit down with the employer. We do the work. It's the Nurse Practice Act and the Minnesota State Board of Nursing that holds us accountable to our license. And when we have a say in how it is we practice, we get it done. But if we don't have a say, everyone is at risk. Every single one of us needs a nurse one day in your life. We are here to fight so that you have that nurse the day you need it. So we want to protect this practice, we want to recruit, we want to retain, and we want to have safe staffing for all. So that's it, guys. Welcome to Southdale. We're glad you're here. Thank you. I'll introduce Moda Sakori.
Hello everyone, my name is Modest Okori. I represent Fairview, Bethesda, and St. John's. Just want to let everybody know that we are all nurses. We don't like to be on the street. It's not our intention to be on the street, but we are pushed to be on the street. We would rather be with our patients, not on the street. We don't like it. Look at all these nurses. We would have loved to be with our patients, but we are out here fighting for the patients, fighting for safety, fighting to have adequate nurses that we need to take care of our patients. But the hospital, they don't want to do that. Contrary to what they tell people that it's all about wages, it's not all about wages. If it's for wages, our president has said it so many times, we would have been working as travelers, right? But we chose to stay to make things better for our patients. We ask for security. All of you have heard about all the incidences happening across the hospital settings. Our staff being assaulted. Over at St. John's, a doctor was assaulted a few weeks ago. At Bethesda, a staff was assaulted in front of the hospital. We brought all this information to management. What did they tell us? Nothing in your proposal is workable. Yeah, they keep on telling us that we want to settle this contract. No, they are lying. They don't want to settle the contract. It's all about control. It's all about power. Even at the time, members came to negotiation section crying, telling them heart-wrenching stories of assault, humiliation. What do they tell us? They will ask, what else do you have for us? No compassionate, no sympathy, no empathy. Those are the employers we are working for. But we will not stop until we get the best for the patient. We will not stop until we get all the staffing requirements we need to make healthcare a good thing for Minnesota and across the nation. So we will continue, nurses. Keep on fighting, no giving up. Stand up for your right. Thank you. So let me call on Amy Tillman to come over.
Hi, my name is Amy. I work for the University of Minnesota Masonic Children's Hospital, M Health Fairview. It's a mouthful, but what M Health Fairview is spending its money on is their branding. It's their advertising. And if they spend their money on what is happening in the building, taking care of our patients, having enough staff, not just nurses, all of our staff that take care of the community, if we had what we needed to care for everyone, that would be the reputation that would soar. That would be what tells you M Health is where you need to go for your care. But instead, they have huge billboards. They have M Health Fairview up in the Allianceville. That's what they're spending their money on. But what we need them to pay attention to is what we're asking for. Safe staffing, better benefits so that we retain good nurses, so that they stay in the community where they live and where they want to take care of their patients. Thank you so much for being here. Next, Jeff from Methodist.
How's it going? I'm Jeff Bloom. I'm from Methodist Hospital. I work in neurology and neurosurgery. And this is Kaylee. So for us, all the proposals, all the things we're looking at, whether it's wages or whether it's time off or it's maternity leave, all that stuff, it all comes down to gaining more staff and retaining more staff. We are just short constantly. Seems like every shift, every day, they're trying to get us to stay extra. Friday night, I worked 16 hours overnight. I went home, I slept for 4 hours. I came back and worked another 12. And I do this at least once a week. I'm trying to leave. Between shifts, I'll spend 10 minutes eating food before I go back. I have this little one clinging on to me, trying to get me not to leave because she hasn't seen me in like 2 or 3 days. And this sucks. This isn't sustainable. This is like this constantly. For the strike here, the hospitals are doing very well. They found a lot of nurses. They were able to pay nurses more, and they were able to control the census in order to have safe patient assignments. 3 things they've been telling us for 6 months they have no control over. They're out of their hands. They can't do anything about it. They've solved all those problems. They've proved our point that they can solve the problems that they're saying that they can't solve. They can make a contract that works for us, that makes nursing sustainable, that makes patients safe in the hospital. And next is going to be Senator Franzen.
Thank you, Kaylee. Thank you, everybody. I'm State Senator Melissa Lopez Franzen. I'm also the Senate Minority Leader in the Minnesota Senate with the Democrats. And this is my hospital. This is my community. This is your hospital, and this is your community. Both of my kids were born in this hospital right here, and you all took care of me and my family. So let me start by thanking you for that, and by thanking nurses from the bottom of my heart for having to be here despite the work that you want to be doing today. And I speak for all Minnesotans when I say few, if any, of us have answered calls like each and every one of you did these last few years. You know those calls. And I thank you for that, for putting your life and your families on the line for the rest of us. At a time when others stayed home to stay safe, you were on the front lines, putting your lives at risk to care for those who needed it the most, at risk of your own health and to your own family's health. You worked day after day, around the clock, to help those who needed it most. We owe you a debt of gratitude that cannot be repaid. That is what makes us today so infuriating. The truth is we shouldn't be here, and you don't want to be here either, because in a just moral, and equitable society, you wouldn't have to be on strike to get what you deserve. The truth is that conditions that you are working under are completely unacceptable. And I know that you're in this profession because above else you care. Yet the conditions you are facing tested all of you, and you have created a real crisis. More and more nurses are burnt out and are working double and triple shifts, or are being put in dangerous conditions and dangerous situations, all without the support needed to ensure the safety of staff and patients, and that is wrong. You are not asking for too much. You're only asking for what's right. The debt we owe our nurses cannot be repaid, but what we can do is make sure that you get a small piece of what you are owed. Let's also be clear, this is not about wages, as you've heard. It's about safety, patient safety, about your safety, about Minnesota safety. You care about your patients, but you cannot give the care that you want and that they deserve if there's a shortage of staff in a hospital. You want to make sure the patients are safe, but you cannot keep them safe if you are forced into violent situations where your own safety is not guaranteed. And you want to help keep families in Minnesota healthy. But how can you do that when you yourself must choose between caring for a loved one and going to work? And at a time of record profits, yes, record profits for hospitals and record compensation for executives, it should not take a strike to get the fair wages each and every one of you deserve. We shouldn't have to be here today. But time and time again, we have to fight for what's right, and which is why I am proud, and my caucus and the Senate Democrats in the Minnesota legislature are proud of all of you and honored to join you in this fight. The largest private nurses strike union in the entire American history. And this is a powerful moment. And let me add my voice to yours, and to make sure that the executives are listening, and to let you know that my colleagues and I, one of them I know is here, Senator Steve Swasinski, he can raise his hand wherever he's at, other brothers and sisters of labor are with you, and Minnesotans of all backgrounds are with you. So thank you for doing what you need to do to make this wrong a right. We are with you. We will be with you until the end. The strike does not end today. The work will continue, and we have your back. Thank you.
Are you kidding?
Okay, I'm Senator Steve Swasinski from Eden Prairie, and I just want to say to everyone here, a nurse saved my life when I was 17 years old. A 17-year-old nurse saved my life when I was 17 years old, and I'm here today to tell you I don't owe you guys a pat on the back. I don't owe you guys a debt of gratitude. I don't owe you guys a round of applause. I owe you guys everything.
Now that is the way to end a list of speakers. All right, very good. I never knew you had it in you there. Okay. Anyway, questions?
There's a group of nurses that go back at 6:30 today. Can you explain why?
They're going back at 6.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
What's our answer for that?
The way the strike notice was drafted.
Yeah, that's it. It was mainly the way the strike notice was drafted, and so they have to go back at 6:30. For 7 p.m. tonight at United.
Okay, just United.
Yeah.
That's the only hospital.
That's the only hospital. The rest of us will be on strike till we'll go back 7 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Were there any negotiating sessions that went on during these past 3
We all had them set up, and like North Memorial, and did you guys have one? Nothing. Okay. Yeah, they either refused to set them up or they canceled them.
The hospital.
The hospitals did. Like at North, they gave us a lecture about how disappointed they were, and then they canceled we would have been at the bargaining table on this past Tuesday, yesterday. And Alina and Children's also had dates that were canceled.
Okay, you're asking for a say in staffing levels, correct?
Correct.
Twin Cities Hospitals group said that some nurses do not say. They said management nurses and charge nurses are part of the
I alluded to the fact that, well, first of all, we wanted to put an arbitrator in the contract, and they said no. They kept saying that, why would we have somebody who doesn't know anything about health care? You know, like if we came up with a difference of opinion on what they were going to want to do for staffing, and they said categorically no. And so what I alluded to at the beginning is we want that if they're going to change the grid or the staffing on my floor, like in the ICU, make me all of a sudden take 3 patients instead of 1 or 2, like we should. They said we just want to be able to, they got to convince 51% of the nurses on the floor by vote that this will be okay. And I'm sorry, I'll say it again. If you can't convince half your nurses that the change that you're going to make on the floor is an okay change, you better not be making it. So but they see that as, and this quote, we will never let the nurses have a say in the staffing grids. They were just blatantly saying we will never. So these committees that you're talking about, and we have the same ones at North and they do here at Fairview, they don't mean anything anymore. They don't mean anything anymore. They have said we have learned to get by with less during the pandemic, and I think that's the way they intend to go.
Can I say too? The hospital ultimately has veto power over it too. I work as charge nurse, and so we have grids. We're supposed to have a certain number of patients per nurse, and then we get that number, and we don't have enough nurses, but we have more beds. So they say you got to take more patients. They say you're going to go up a patient, you're going to go up to 2 patients. Charge nurse is supposed to help all the other nurses. They have to take patients too. And so they'll come out to us and say, we know you're understaffed already, but why can't you take more patients? What are you doing right now that you can't take 1 more patient on top of what you're taking? So they have the final say in this. Even if we do come to a consensus and say, well, this is what we want to do, they don't have the nurses to do it. They're pressuring us to take more and more patients, which again, right now in the strike with the replacement workers, they are not doing. From what we hear in the hospital, they have safe patient assignments. They are not taking patients above the grids that we're supposed to be working by.
Yeah. Mary, has the strike helped you gain more clout, do you believe, in getting towards the goals of what you hope to gain in these contracts, walking out these last 3 days?
Am I totally confident that they're gonna go 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, want to come back to the table and give us everything we need? I don't know. Are we confident about that?
Well, do you believe you have more leverage now as a result of this?
I hope so. I hope so. They realize that it's not as easy. We're actually kind of like dreading going back. How much we're going to have to pick up the pieces, etc. You know, we've got our nursing assistants and things like that inside the hospitals, and the stories aren't that great. Okay, so we're concerned, but that doesn't detract from that they forced us to do this. Okay, we tried legislation, right, Melissa? Absolutely. We tried legislation. We have tried everything that we could, and they don't listen. But there is one other piece that we want to put in our contract, and that is saying that if a nurse comes up against an unsafe assignment, okay, that they have the right to refuse an unsafe assignment, which is their God-given right in the Nurse Practice Act, okay? Well, not God, but you know, by law kind of thing. Anyway, they're disciplining and sending nurses home who refuse an unsafe assignment. This is another piece that we want in our contract. See, so guys, we're just fighting for the right to practice the way our Minnesota Nurse Practice Act allows us. And that's called advocating for the safety of patients.
Do you get the sense that the hospitals feel like if they could wait out these 3 days, you won't go back to work tomorrow, and the hospitals get the sense they're now in the driver's seat when it comes to leverage and negotiation? I mean, you've already struck, you picketed, you're back to work. What more can you do at that point?
Well, I mean, by law, we can't sit and plan ahead, but I would say to all the nurses behind me and every nurse listening to this, we could settle tomorrow. We could take the 11.5% or 12% and no guaranteed language. We could settle this tomorrow. But are all of you willing to go back to the conditions that you've been in? No! So we don't have any alternative but to go into round 2 of this war. And that's what I call it, because we're fighting for our very existence. And I'll say this again. Study came out, 51% of the nurses will potentially leave the bedside across this nation as of next year. That is a public health crisis.
to have 51% of us. So we're not only fighting for our staffing, we're fighting for our very profession. So nurses, I hate to say it, we're heading into round 2.